The new Battlefield game has already gotten leaked. There's a ton of news to go over, but if you're a fan of older or more classic Battlefield games, I think you're going to be pretty pleasantly surprised. Now, obviously, in this video, I'm not going to be showcasing the leaked Battlefield Labs gameplay because it could get copyright striked. From what I've seen, it looks like EA has issued DMCA takedowns against this gameplay, but then, weirdly enough, removed them. And overall, it seems pretty risky to be actually showcasing the gameplay itself, but we can talk about the leaks and we can discuss some of the different details and information that's been shown off here. So yeah, I'm most likely going to have some Delta Force gameplay in the background, and this is Battlefield's biggest competition right now. It's free to play on PC as well as mobile, and it is potentially coming to consoles as well, but we're not exactly sure when that's going to happen, but I do want to talk about that information as well. So if you guys do enjoy this video and you want to see some more Battlefield or Delta Force stuff on the channel, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new. Let's get into it. Okay, so I was going to pull up this one video to react to it and share the information that was being shown in it, but the video already has a copyright claim by EA, so I might have to look somewhere else to find this. So what's honestly really strange is that for some reason, they did issue DMCA takedowns on Twitter, but then they revoked them, so I have found the gameplay on Twitter. But the video I was going to react to was just a longer video that was posted to YouTube, but that one got a copyright takedown, so yeah, I'm definitely not showing off anything in this video. But we can talk about it. So it looks like what happened here is someone was actually live streaming the Battlefield Labs gameplay on Twitch, and then somebody who was watching it decided to record it and then leak it. Right off the bat, one of the biggest W's, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be really happy to hear this, is that we do have classic classes returning in Battlefield. Now, they already kind of confirms that this was the direction that they were going to be going in, but from seeing the gameplay itself, it's really nice to see that the loadouts are looking almost identical to how they were in Battlefield 4. We have assault, engineer, support, and recon, just like in the good old days. And from what I can see in the loadout, it does seem like pretty typical standard stuff. We have a primary weapon, a secondary pistol, 2 different gadget slots, and then of course you have a throwable lethal, and then we have a dedicated melee slot as well. But one thing that does look different, and this is probably just specific to the engineer class, but it looks like this person has opted for basically an anti-armor tree. Since I know a lot of you guys watching are also COD players, the best way I can describe this is that this class essentially has 4 different perks. However, it's probably going to be more like a skill tree where you can essentially branch off and pick different abilities that will dive deeper into your specific playstyle for that class. Now, in this gameplay, we do get to see a lot of the map overview spawning screen because honestly, whoever was playing was not very good. I think if anything, they probably did a copyright takedown on this gameplay because it was so bad. I'm sorry, whoever was playing, I think they should have probably warmed up against some actual, AI, some bots or something, because it's pretty hard to watch, I'm not gonna lie. This person did a lot of spawning and dying and spawning and dying. Honestly, it looked like Jeff playing Modern Warfare 3. Spawn, die, spawn, die, spawn, die, spawn, die! But from what we can see with this, little map overview, it does look a lot like Battlefield 4. It's looking pretty clean. I like how they have 3D renderings of the buildings on the map when you're trying to pick where you're gonna spawn. And I'm pretty sure this feature has existed in past Battlefield games before, but it's a little bit different. It's tweaked in Battlefield Labs, but when you're hovering over a squad mate to spawn in on, it looks like there's basically a body cam angle, so you can kind of see what's going on their screen, and it also has some unique audio mixing. It's just a really cool feature. But one thing that's pretty interesting in Conquest, at least, is that the objectives are really obviously marked. There's a bright blue line that essentially marks the borders of where you have to be in order to take the objective, which is just really good for visibility. I would be curious to see in hardcore modes in Battlefield if they would show this information or if it's potentially going to be hidden. And this just might be a little nitpicky of me, but I'm not the biggest fan of how the HUD is currently laid out. Now, granted, in the past, in a lot of different Battlefield games, they've had a lot of customization when it comes to what shows up on the HUD and scaling and where you can position things. And I would hope that in this game that they give you full customization of the UI. I think that would be great for the next Battlefield game. Because again, this is someone who is streaming Battlefield Labs on Twitch and then someone else recorded it. So we don't really know if this is the default HUD settings or if they might have tweaked things themselves. But just judging based off of what I can see right now, the kill feed is put in the top right part of the screen, which is what Delta Force is currently doing as well. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the kill feed being in the top right. It gives me COD Ghost flashbacks, and I don't want to have nightmares playing this game, so hopefully we can move the kill feed around. But what's also pretty interesting as well is that the mini-map is in the bottom left, and honestly, I would prefer to have it in the top left. And I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to the bottom right, where you can see the ammo counter and your different weapons and gadgets and stuff, it is looking pretty busy, and I don't know. Again, I haven't played Battlefield Labs. I'm not exactly sure how much of this can be tweaked or how much of it can't be tweaked, but if this is what the default HUD is looking like for the next Battlefield game, I'm really hoping that we're gonna have more customization options. I feel like it's really gonna be necessary. Now, as far as goes for the actual gameplay itself, I'm gonna be honest, it's looking a little bit more slow paced, which I think is nice. Battlefield 2042 kind of went more in the direction of Call of Duty, especially when it comes to movements. like this Battlefield Labs gameplay is looking a lot more grounded. And again, I don't know if it's just because of the person who is playing, but I'm not seeing any sliding or slide canceling. I don't think we have any crazy wingsuit abilities or anything. Now, that's not to say that it's not gonna have that, but from what I can see right now, I'm not seeing anything like that. This dude was spending most of his time running around with an RPG and trying to take out vehicles, and he does destroy a tank. And I gotta say, I did see some gameplay of someone shooting a building with an RPG, and even though this is just early gameplay, the destruction is looking pretty beautimous. Now, I don't know if the next Battlefield game is gonna have like full-blown Levolution. That would be pretty sick to see them bring back those super dynamic maps. But even if they don't, the regular contextual destruction in the game is looking pretty good so far. I'm not sure if it's gonna be up to par with Bad Company 2. It's probably way too early to make that call yet, especially because destruction kind of does go on a map-to-map basis. But now I'm seeing some gameplay of this dude driving around in a heavy tank, and this thing is destroying the buildings as he's driving through them, which is just so awesome. I think that's really great for immersion, as well as making the tanks just feel even more powerful. One thing that's pretty interesting too is that he's kind of getting like a pit stop at a vehicle supply station, which I'm assuming is going to resupply the ammo for the tank, possibly even repair it. But even though things are looking pretty good so far, I do want to pick apart a couple of things that I'm seeing in the gameplay, although it could kind of be a user error. I am noticing in certain sections of the map that there's some weird lighting issues, and some of the textures are also not looking all that great either, but that could be one of two things. It could be because Battlefield Labs is currently in alpha testing and it could be very early, so maybe DICE just has to fix some of those weird lighting bugs, or maybe they can improve the textures as time goes on. But at the same time, it does kind of look like whoever was playing the game and was streaming it might have been playing on lower settings. Typically in the past, Battlefield games are pretty graphically intensive, so if you're trying to maximize frame rate and just, you know, try to prioritize getting kills over trying to make the game look nice, then there's a pretty good likelihood that this person has turned down their graphic settings and it's just not going to look as nice. And that's on top of the fact that this person was streaming their gameplay to Twitch and then someone else was recording it and then it got uploaded to Twitter. So this is not going to be the highest quality looking gameplay, but I do still find it very interesting that with all of those factors considered, people are still very much vibing with this gameplay, which is still so crazy to me because this gameplay is not the highest quality. There's some weird looking things here and there, and this person is not really popping off or doing anything too crazy. Honestly, this person's probably dying more than they're getting kills throughout all these different clips, but it doesn't matter. Like, people just want to see the game, they want to play the game. But one thing I will say is that whether this is like pre-alpha or alpha gameplay, overall, it does look like it's a little bit more put together and more polished than Battlefield 2042 was looking like around this time. Also, I'm just noticing that your squad mates seem to have a green outline, which is going to make it way easier to spot who's in your squad and who's not. So that's kind of a nice accessibility feature. One thing I've noticed that some people are kind of iffy about is damage numbers showing up as you shoot enemies or if you're doing damage to vehicles. Wait a second, this guy just got a quad RPG. Hold up. I was just gonna say, it'd be really interesting to see if you could turn that setting off or on. So that way, if you're someone who wants to see the damage numbers, you can leave it on. But if you don't like that, you could just turn it off. I'm pretty sure you can do that in Apex Legends, and I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do it in the next Battlefield game. But again, I haven't played the game. I'm just looking at the gameplay, so I don't know for sure. But overall, from looking at this Conquest gameplay, right now, it seems like they're really pushing to make this game kind of look and maybe feel more like Battlefield 4 than anything else. That's the kind of vibe that I'm getting from seeing the gameplay. And if you guys have seen these clips as well, I think you might feel the same. But when it comes to gameplay design choices, DICE actually did share some official information about their design philosophy specifically for gunplay and movement in the next Battlefield game. They said, "We've continually evolved our gameplay and movement mechanics throughout the Battlefield series. Now within Battlefield Labs, we're focused on refining the best elements from past titles, modernizing them, and validating if they feel fun and rewarding and have the right balance between intuitive control and dynamic combat. We're designing the combat experience to ensure players of all skill levels can enjoy our gunplay and movement systems. Our goal is to offer gameplay that rewards skill with precise weapon feedback and movement options for veterans while providing an intuitive experience for new players to learn and enjoy. For gunplay, we're exploring designs centered on helping you learn and develop skills and muscle memory through action as weapons naturally signal their recoil direction. This feedback loop allows you to understand and adjust your aim, making it easier to handle different weapons. This system not only adds variety, but also enhances each weapon's unique feel and playstyle. Movement is also deeply integrated with gunplay, as your actions and targets are all part of the same cohesive combat experience. We aim to make movement both feel intuitive and rewarding to move within the world and during combat, but also when playing against someone using both the gunplay and movement systems to their maximum potential." Okay, now I gotta keep it real with you guys. From seeing that Battlefield Labs gameplay, again, it could have just been the person who was playing, but it doesn't really seem like there's a ton of different movement options out there. Now, there is more to read in this article, but just based off of the gameplay that was leaked and shown, I just don't want you guys to get it twisted. From seeing the gameplay, the movement actually kind of feels more like traditional Battlefield. I didn't see any slides. I didn't see any kind of like combat rolls, nothing crazy crazy. There's no dolphin dives like in Black Ops 1 or Black Ops 2, and there's no omni movement. It really just felt like more traditional Battlefield movement. But as far as goes for gunplay and recoil patterns and aim assist values, that's something that you really do need to sit down and play and experience to get a good feel for. But let's see what DICE has to say about it, because they're saying what's new and improved for gunplay and movement. Initially, we'll test select but important areas that create the foundation required to create a fun and rewarding Battlefield combat experience. We're making focused efforts to create consistent and optimized millisecond to millisecond soldier combats, and we'll share some key examples of changes that will be available during our initial play sessions. We've reduced the time it takes for bullets to appear on your screen from when you press fire. This change decreases input delay, makes shooting targets feel more responsive, and helps you better track and hit moving targets. We're optimizing for a 60 Hz tick rate, ensuring the game server more frequently updates the positions and actions for all players. This results in responsive gameplay across all platforms and inputs. You'll notice more precise shooting and movements, enhanced damage feedback, and more accurate representation of other players' positions and combat outcomes. We've adjusted the recoil system to make the different weapon types feel unique when firing them. Through enhancements to gunplay recoil, camera shakes, and firing settles, each shot's recoil direction now matches its gameplay angle. The weapon visually stabilizes the more accurate your handling is, making you feel like you're actually firing and controlling it. To evolve the movement system, we've revamped animations and reintroduced movement features such as crouch sprint, combat dive, and landing roll, and added visual indicators to make it easier to understand when movements such as vaulting or leaning are possible. Okay, so they've actually got a lot more movement stuff going on, and yeah, I think this person was just a potato. They just weren't using this stuff, man. That's actually some pretty huge stuff, and it will impact the gameplay pretty significantly. Crouch sprint is definitely really interesting. Combat diving is basically, you know, like the Call of Duty dolphin dive equivalent. At least I'm assuming that it is. Not too sure about the landing roll. Maybe that's going to be like a barrel roll or a combat roll. But yeah, other movement mechanics like vaulting and leaning are also pretty commonplace in a lot of these types of games, so not too bad. It is really nice to see that they're also trying to optimize the game for 60 Hz tick rate servers, as well as trying to reduce input delay. Now, I'm not exactly sure if that means that the weapons are going to be hit scan or if they're just going to be faster firing projectiles, but obviously they don't want to try to mess with that balance too much, because the game could feel less like Battlefield, where you are rewarded for learning how fast the projectiles shoot and then leading your shots, versus the gunplay in Call of Duty, where almost everything does feel like a hit scan, at least in regular multiplayer. Maybe not so much Warzone, but definitely 6v6 multiplayer. But next up, they do have a section about feedback and validation. They're saying at this stage, content within Battlefield Labs is pre-alpha. Okay, so this is pre-alpha gameplay, and play sessions take place within a closed dev environment focused on testing small chunks of a larger array of features. Some gameplay features are placeholder, work in progress, and with bugs and performance not being representative of the final experience. However, even during this early stage of development, you'll get a good sense of our new design approach. During our first play session, our teams will be validating the systems and stability of Battlefield Labs, such as server performance, while participants will be able to familiarize themselves with what's next for Battlefield through testing the gunplay and movement experience focused on feel of the different weapon archetypes, improvements to aim and control, weapon balance and fun factor, look and feel of movement, moving and interacting within the map, as well as combat pacing. So yeah, it seems like these 6 things right here are what DICE is going to be focusing on the most when it comes to these Battlefield Labs tests. And it's going to be really interesting to see over time how DICE balances and rebalances both the guns as well as the movements to make it feel like a new, fresh game, while also still being a more traditional Battlefield game. But lastly, they're saying here a reminder that while our play session will be within a closed environment and we can't invite everyone to every session, we'll make sure to keep you informed on ongoing Battlefield Labs play sessions and learnings through these regular community updates. They have a whole thing on like signing up and stuff, and yeah, I mean the gameplay itself actually leaked, so at this point I feel like people are really gonna want to try to get in and play in one of these play tests, because a good chunk of people have now seen the game and they're starting to get more and more hyped and excited for a game that isn't playable quite yet. And honestly, man, the second they announced Battlefield Labs, I was like, yeah, someone is absolutely going to be leaking this gameplay and all this information, all these details. It's going to be out there, and sure enough, the second they did a play test, it already got leaked. And overall, I think there are pros and cons to having this stuff leaked and out there. I think the biggest pro is the fact that it has people talking. Like, people are actually probably even more excited now that they've seen gameplay, even though it wasn't the best gameplay in terms of how it looked and how good or bad the player was. And I think on top of that as well, it is starting to give players who felt burned by Battlefield 2042 a little bit more reassurance, because it is matching the expectations that DICE has set up for us so far. However, this is definitely not an ideal situation for them. They are definitely sending out copyright strikes to anyone who is posting and sharing the gameplay itself, which obviously means that they didn't want us to be able to see this gameplay quite yet. And I do think that there are some negative consequences consequences that can happen from seeing this gameplay so soon. The biggest downside of this gameplay leaking so early is that it doesn't really look all that great, and it's not the best representation of what the game is going to be. So there are going to be people who see this gameplay and they're gonna be like, this isn't it. This is not gonna be a good Battlefield game, and that's way too early of a judgment call. And it is what it is. Like, those people are probably just gonna think that this next Battlefield game is, again, not going to be worth it. And by seeing this leaked gameplay, it's just not really gonna change their minds. And that's definitely not a good thing, because this is a very critical game for DICE and EA. And I'm sure that they're hoping that this game is going to succeed way beyond what Battlefield 2042 did. Another pretty big downside is that people are gonna be getting FOMO from seeing this gameplay. They're gonna be wondering, how come I'm not getting into the Battlefield Labs playtests? I want to play the game now. And even though initially it might not seem like that big of a deal, gamers nowadays are getting more and more impatient as the days go on. Our attention spans are getting fried, and people are going to see this gameplay and get excited for a game that might not even be coming out for an entire year or longer. We've seen this happen time and time again, where developers and publishers, they tease their games too early, or they show off gameplay too early. Now granted, this was leaked, but still, they give everyone a sampling, a little taste of what's to come, but then they make you wait like a year or two or even longer, and then people do start to lose interest, and they start looking forward to other games that end up releasing sooner. And that does kind of tie into the last downside that I wanted to cover, which is the fact that Delta Force right now is Battlefield's biggest competition. I feel like they're in a really tricky spot right now, because they are intentionally waiting to see what Rockstar is going to be doing with GTA 6, and they're essentially letting that dictate when they want to release the next Battlefield game. Whereas while all of that stuff is happening, Delta Force is out right now, and it's free to play, and it's a pretty fucking awesome game. And really, the only potential drawback of Delta Force at the moment is just the fact that you can't play it with a controller on PC, and we don't have the console release quite yet. And they did apparently release a statement, I think a couple weeks ago or so, stating that they are unfortunately going to have to delay the release of Delta Force to console because they want to work on a couple of different things. I think it specifically had to do with balancing the inputs, which means they're probably trying to figure out how is crossplay going to factor into this equation, as well as trying to figure out some UI stuff. I think when you're playing Conquest and you have all these different spawn points. So yeah, we don't know exactly when Delta Force is going to be coming to console, but if they do end up dropping it soon, that's going to make things even worse for Battlefield, and that'll potentially put even more pressure on them to maybe consider releasing the next Battlefield game sooner, because look, they are going to be losing players to Delta Force. They've been sitting on Battlefield 2042 for a number of years at this point, and the interest has definitely gone down, and especially with gameplay leaking, people are even less excited for 2042, and now they're looking forward to the future. They're looking forward to the next Battlefield game. And I'm just saying, man, if those people are tired of 2042 and they're looking forward to the next Battlefield game, but they don't have anything else to play, they're most likely going to go to the next best thing that's available right now and is also new and fresh and getting updates, which is Delta Force. But yeah, that's all the official information as well as the leaks that we have on the next Battlefield game. Definitely let me know in the comments what you guys think about all of this stuff so far. And I'm really curious to know, do the Battlefield leaks have you guys more interested in the next Battlefield game, or are you still cautious about how they're going to be handling things?
And remember, no pre-orders.
But with that being said, thank you guys very much for watching. I really do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did and you want to see some more Battlefield stuff or some more Delta Force stuff as well, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys later.
I've come. Train going.